You may still be shocked that Iron Mike lost a fight to a YouTuber, but that may not be his biggest problem. The Warrior, who used to be unbeatable, is now suffering the effects of many bad choices he made a few years ago. Let's look at these shocking new facts that are making things worse for Mike Tyson. After the fight with Jake Paul, Mike said he didn't feel bad about losing their heavyweight boxing match, which he called one last time in the ring, and which was watched by over 7,2,0,0,0 fans cheered, and an additional 60 million households around the world watched. The 58-year-old former world heavyweight champion may never fight again, and fans will never forget what an unbeatable fighter Mike Tyson was after this loss. This loss was made worse by what many call the worst display of Mike's famous boxing skills, and many people blame Jake Paul, who seemed to love being called the bad guy in this tragic story. But while everyone is mad at everything Mike said on X, there were times when I lost, but I still won. I'm thankful for last night. I don't regret getting in the ring one last time, to have my kids see me go 8 rounds with a skilled fighter half my age in front of a packed Dallas Cowboys stadium. That is an experience that no man should have to ask for. Thank you. Then he said this: I almost died in June, had 8 blood transfusions, lost half my blood and 25 pounds in the hospital, and had to fight to get healthy enough to fight, so I won as a person. Many boxing fans remember that the Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson fight had to be canceled because Mike had a medical emergency. After he was said to be better, Mike said, "I want to thank my fans around the world for their support and understanding during this time. Unfortunately, due to my ulcer flare-up, I have been advised by my doctor to lighten my training for a few weeks to rest and recover." Now that the fight is over, people are asking more questions, and many are wondering if Iron Mike is suffering from a terminal illness. People were wondering if Mike was really sick or if the whole fight was a scam to make money for everyone involved. You can understand why they were angry, because of who Mike was and how fit he was in the weeks leading up to the fight. When you think of boxing, you think of Mike Tyson, the boy from Brooklyn who was famous for his powerful blows and unmatched willpower. Despite having a hard childhood, he changed boxing forever and became the youngest heavyweight champion and one of the best of all time. Lorna Mae Tyson, Mike's mother, was a free spirit who may have been a worker. The man Mike thought was his father was a pimp named Jimmy Kirkpatrick, but his birth certificate lists his real father as P.C.L. Tyson, a humble cab driver from Jamaica. Mike's father wasn't a humble cab driver. He met Mike's mother while he was gambling, hanging out on the streets, and going to pool halls. He eventually left his family around the time Mike was born, leaving Lorna to take care of them. According to Mike, his father was just a regular street guy caught up in the life of the streets. When Mike was 10, his family had to move from Bedford to Brown because they couldn't afford to stay there anymore. During these early years, Mike lived in high-crime areas and had been arrested 38 times by the time he was 13. Sometimes he was arrested for fighting people who made fun of his lisp and high-pitched voice, and other times he was arrested for being drunk. Mike was arrested for small crimes like stealing, but before he was lost to the streets for good, he found himself at the Tron School for Boys. It was Bobby Stewart, a counselor at a juvenile correctional facility and former boxer, who saw Mike's potential as a boxer and encouraged him to start training. In the early 1980s, he was able to compete in and win gold at the Junior Olympic Games twice. He also won gold at the Nation Golden Gloves in New York. But it wasn't always easy for young Mike. As an amateur, he lost both of his fights against Henry Tillman by decision at the 1984 Summer Olympics in Los Angeles. Stewart continued to train Mike, but later brought him to boxing manager and trainer Cus D'Amato, who was a legend at the time. At this point, the young boy had dropped out of high school while still under D'Amato's care. Mike's mom died when he was only 16, so D'Amato became his legal guardian. He said, "My mother only knew me as a crazy kid running around the streets and coming home. Had new clothes that she knew I didn't buy. I never saw her happy or proud of me for something, and I never knew about her or had the chance to talk to her. It doesn't affect me professionally, but it does affect me emotionally and personally, and it was devastating for Mike to lose his mother's approval and the chance to connect with her. He had a childhood marked by a lack of understanding and connection, which changed his whole outlook on life and his career." As a child growing up in a rough part of Brooklyn, boxing was more than just a sport for him, it was his escape. His rise in the sport was driven more by his need to survive than by his love of the sport. D'Amato was very smart in how he used this. Instead of trying to control Mike's anger and rage, he taught him how to control it. He was training Mike in ways that went beyond the normal boxing routine because his goal wasn't to make a champion, but to change a troubled young man. So he was teaching his student the importance of mental discipline and strategic thinking, making them just as important as the physical exercises he was doing. As a result, Mike was deliberate in every move and punch he made. These lessons made Mike a boxing superstar, starting with his professional debut when he was 18 years old and beat Hector Mercedes by TKO in the first round. In that first year as a professional, Mike fought in 15 fights. And if that wasn't impressive enough, he won 26 of his first 28 fights by knockout or TKO, with 16 of those wins coming by way of knockout or TKO. After those early wins, Mike was a real monster. You'd think he would start by fighting new, average fighters like himself, but because of how well he was winning, he quickly moved on to fights against James Tillis, David Jacko, Jesse Ferguson, Mitch Green, and Marvis Furr. He was being hailed as the next great heavyweight champion after his winning streak got attention from the media, but something terrible was about to ruin Mike's career. Unfortunately, D'Amato too. D'Amato soon died of pneumonia, leaving the 19-year-old heartbroken and alone. Some people think that Mike's problems started early in his career because D'Amato's death in November 1985 happened so early in his career. But Mike started to fall apart. He was beating up his opponents so quickly that the 5'11" boxer was given the nickname Kid Dynamite, which he earned after beating up former world championship contender Marvis Frazier in Glens Falls, New York, a fight he won by charging at Frazier at the start of the fight and landing 2 straight uppercuts, the second of which knocked Frazier out within 30 seconds. The referee knew it was pointless to count to 10 and ended the fight right away. He later said, "I could have counted to 20 and he wouldn't have gotten up." That same year, Mike fought Trevor Berbick for the World Boxing Council heavyweight title and won by TKO in the second round. He was 20 years old. 4 months, he beat Tony Tucker and James Smith to become the youngest heavyweight champion in history. The next year, he defended his title against Smith in Las Vegas, Nevada, and won by unanimous decision, adding Smith's World Boxing Association championship to his already existing belt. This put him in a strong position to win the Heavyweight Unification Series, a competition meant to create an undisputed heavyweight champion, and expectations were quite high. In October of that year, he beat Terrell Biggs, the 1984 Olympic super heavyweight gold champion, by TKO in the 7th round, in another fight that got a lot of attention from the media. At this point, Nintendo suggested using Mike for Punch-Out after seeing one of his fights. Nintendo of America president Manu Arawakawa was so impressed by Mike's strength and skill that he wanted this to happen as soon as possible. Tonto is a regular guest on public radio and interviews on both sides of the mic, including 2011 when criticism of the fight was leveled at him. Punch-Out by Mike Tyson came out in 1987 and was a big hit. Many fans think it's one of the best games ever made. 1988 began with another win over Larry Holmes. But one of the most famous fights of the year was the richest fight in history at the time, between Mike and Michael Spinks. While some people wanted Spinks to give Mike a tough fight, most people thought Mike would knock Spinks out in the first round. But no one could have predicted what happened next. Mike ended the fight at 91 seconds, shocking many fans and critics. Mike was at the top of his game, and he won many awards for it. In 1989, he even got an honorary doctorate in humane letters from Central State University, even though he had dropped out of high school as a junior. With no one to turn to for comfort, Mike found it in the arms of strangers. On February 7, 1988, he married actress Robin Given in a traditional wedding at Holy Angels Catholic Church in Chicago. At the time, Given was famous for her work on the Soon, rumors of Mike's domestic violence, mental instability, and violent behavior began to spread. It was also made public that his marriage to Given was very unstable. Given said Mike punched her, and Mike admitted it, saying it was the best punch I've ever thrown in my life. Given also said she miscarried, but Mike said she was never pregnant, and that she used that to get him to marry her. Despite this, the troubled couple didn't have any children. They chose to end their relationship. Stayed in a mansion in Bernardsville, New Jersey while they were married. Things quickly came to a breaking point when they co-hosted an interview with Barbara Walters on ABC TV's news magazine show 2020. Given called living with Mike torture, pure hell, and worse than anything I could possibly imagine. Mike sat there calmly as Given called him a manic depressive on national TV, a description that was later confirmed by medical professionals. Given then said a month later that she was getting She got a divorce from him because she said he was abusive, and they officially split up 2 months into the new year. They eventually got a dual divorce, and even though Given wasn't there for the 20-minute hearing, it was clear that she already thought of herself as divorced. Mike was also having career problems, even though they weren't related to the ring. Don King and Bill Kahn were fighting about his future contract, and his marriage to Robin Given was over. Fought British boxer Frank Bruno, who stunned Mike at the end of the first round. Finally, Mike easily finished Bruno on the canvas after he pushed out his glass jaw. In July, Mike beat Carl the Truth Williams in the first round. By 1990, Mike's personal life was in shambles, and it looked like he had lost his way. When the fight with Buster Douglas was announced, it seemed like the rumors were true. Douglas beat Mike for the undisputed title in a bout in Tokyo on February 11, 2011. And the fight shocked the boxing community because the only casino that offered odds was the Mirage, which gave Mike 42-to-1 odds to win. However, Douglas had a 12-inch reach advantage over Mike, which made him impossible to beat. In the 8th round, Mike's fans on a podcast called Hot Boxing with Mike Tyson, where he told them the truth about his life. Many people thought this movie was great because it showed Mike's growth as a person. But Mike wasn't done with boxing yet. In July 2020, it was announced that he had signed a contract to fight former 4-division world champion Roy Jones Jr. in an 8-round exhibition fight. The fight ended in a draw, and many people praised Mike's performance after retirement, saying he did really well for someone over 50 years old. Fans think the fight between Mike Tyson and Jake Paul was disappointing, which makes many of them think of Mike's younger years. Others question the idea of Mike fighting Jake, saying they think it ruined Mike's legacy. This shocking new information has split the internet in two, with some saying it has no effect on the legendary boxer's accomplishments. Do you think anything has changed, and is Mike Tyson no longer one of the greatest boxers who ever lived?